One of the things when we talk about the pelvic floor is we think about strengthening it. Do your Kegels, how many Kegels can you make, how long can you hold them? And that's the strength of the pelvic floor. But one of the things that I'm so passionate about when it comes to the pelvic floor is that we also learn to relax and release it. So when I created my Sacred Pelvis online course, it was just bringing awareness to the pelvic floor. Sometimes that's all we need to do. Then learn to relax it. And once we learn to relax the pelvic floor, we can create strength. You don't want to tighten or build on something that's already tight. You want to be able to relax it and then create strength. So today I want to talk about something that's a little bit more specific when it comes to tightness of the pelvic floor. And tightness of the pelvic floor can literally just be your posture. So if you sit on a sofa and you slouch like this, the pelvic floor will tighten. The pelvic ball can move. It moves. The outlet of the pelvis moves, so it can stretch the muscles and it can contract the muscles. And if we slouch like I do now in the sofa, which is what we usually do when we are in a car driving, in the office, then we tighten the pelvic floor muscles. And most of our postures, many of us actually have a tight pelvic floor, and it can also just be from stress, like we have tight shoulders, we have a tight pelvic floor. So we all need to bring that awareness, learn how to release that tension, then we can start to strengthen it as well. But sometimes that tightness is a lot deeper, and sometimes it's unexplained. So there's a condition called vaginismus, which is that complete tightness of the pelvic floor of the vaginal canal, and it can be so tight that even using tampons or have intercourse is just not going to happen because the muscles tighten up. There can be many reasons for this, and some of those reasons can be completely unexplained. It can be because you had some kind of trauma, and many of us have lighter form of traumas without really realizing what has happened. And it can just be shock in the body. Just like we get a shock, our shoulders tighten up. Our body is amazing, and it has an amazing ability to guard us and to support us and to create safety. And that tightness is support. So say you had some kind of trauma. This could also be birth trauma if you're given birth and that experience was really challenging and it was quite traumatic for you. There could be tightness after giving birth because of the trauma from giving birth, which for most people is traumatic, but on different levels, and we deal with that trauma in many different ways. So if you have any form of vaginismus, I would absolutely suggest that you see some kind of therapist with a speciality in this topic and whatever might be going on around it. The other thing is for that to learn to relax the muscles. That can be a guided meditation that takes you to the pelvic floor. And I do that in the Sacred Pelvis course. I work, the first whole kind of sequence of practices is about just awareness of the pelvic floor. Just bringing awareness to this part that most of us don't really want to engage with or haven't engaged with before. Then the next part is the relaxation, learning to breathe and relax the pelvic floor. And the pelvic floor, we can work with the breath because it will move when we breathe. When we inhale, it will expand just all on its own. When we exhale, it contracts all on its own. So we can simply start to focus on that expansion. Then we can start also to more consciously relax, just like we start to go like, okay, relaxing the shoulders, releasing tension in the jaw. We can do exactly the same thing at the pelvic floor. So other things that helps to relax is the warmth of a nice bath. Maybe when we start to relax in the bath, we can think about having a massage. So we can massage around the pelvis. Massaging, I'll show a female pelvis so we can have an idea of how the muscles look. So obviously there will be skin across. So you might not start by inserting anything into the vagina if you have vaginismus, but you could massage the muscles just around. So the sitting bones, around the sitting bones is a good way to start massaging, because most of us have a lot of tension around here. So having a bit of a massage around the sitting bones are good. Then you can move a bit closer in. Maybe the perineum can start to be massaged. And then if it feels comfortable, you can just start to very gently massage around the vaginal opening. If you see a physiotherapist, they might also start to go internally, and you can have dilators, so like a very small dilator that will be inserted. Maybe that's something you have to practice at home. Then you have one that's a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger to help stretch the tissues. So that's ways that you can start to relax the pelvic floor. And it is something I talk a lot about in the Sacred Pelvis course and on my blog post, because we have so much tension in the pelvic floor, and that is not only uncomfortable and affects us in our daily life. If you have vaginismus, it's a massive impact in your intimate life. Even just using a tampon is a challenge. But because we have all that tightness in our bodies, it can create incontinence. It has all of those effects that we sometimes actually think of is because our pelvic floor is not strong enough. It can actually be because it might not be strong, but it might be really tight. And that's the first thing we really need to learn, to relax and release some of that tension in that part of our bodies as well.